right. Thank you, everyone, for joining another Mold Talks. I have a very special guest. Her name is Michelle. Michelle, I want to first thank you very much for building up the courage today to come forward and share your story. I know for a fact it's going to help others in similar situations, being able to kind of empower them to kind of understand what you went through and be able to make some decisions based upon that. So thank you. And, without further ado, just tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm a wife, mom of 4, and a nanny. I am so glad that I found this podcast because just molds changed my life in so many ways. So I'm glad that I found it, and it can still help in my journey.
Well, thank you. That's awesome. And it's really cool. There's a lot of different people that I get to talk to. And what's interesting is that this story is never exactly the same. There's different circumstances, different symptoms. So it really is helpful because you may connect with, different types of people that went through different types of situations, because no really two situations are exactly the same. So yeah, thank you for joining us today. And I'm going to dive right into it. When was it that you first noticed you weren't feeling well?
It was actually day one of when we moved into our apartment. I immediately started coughing, and we were actually getting ready to go on a Disney trip. And obviously I didn't want to be coughing on a Disney trip. So I went to urgent care, and they prescribed, the normal benzoate cough stuff.
It was day one when you first moved into your apartment, right? And
Yes.
what was going through your mind at the time? I mean, did you think it was going to be air quality or mold or anything like that when you first moved in?
No, so I just thought it was my normal. I kind of knew that I had a mold allergy, and I didn't have tons of issues until I moved to Washington. I should have known moving to Washington was going to be an issue for my mold allergy. So
I hear it rains there quite a bit.
yes. So on day one, I really just thought my allergies are going. It's been raining. Let me just get cough stuff so this goes away. And it's the hindsight that I go back and I go, oh, this was the serious mold problem, because the 2 weeks we were gone, I had 0 issues.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And, so at this time you didn't, you thought it was more allergies. You weren't really like, it's definitely mold in my place. That wasn't the first thought that you had through your head.
No, it wasn't. It's the hindsight that it was like, oh, okay, that is definitely, that was the start of it. One.
When you look back at it, it makes sense. But at the time, you were. So how did you first figure out that mold was impacting your health? When was that? When did it click?
I think for me, it clicked. Well, so on 2 occasions, for me, I was starting to feel like I was crazy. So there's 2 separate times that I really started to be like, So when our clothes started smelling in our closet, and it was only the master closet, I was like, this isn't right. Something's got to be in here. And then when I started losing my sense of smell and my sense of taste, those were the 2 times where I was like, okay, something's not right.
There's something else I heard of that does something like that.
Oh, you mean, well, this was in 2015.
So way before COVID. Now it's just interesting the correlations, right? Because I was making a COVID joke only because we're talking about mold exposure symptoms. I've actually heard this quite a bit, that in severe cases you can lose your sense of smell and sense of taste. And there, obviously there's testing for COVID, but there could be people that are loss of their sense of smell or sense of taste and assume they have COVID, right? They're not going to go get tested. They don't want to potentially contaminate others. I just find that very interesting that, you can't always assume that it's one particular thing.
Yeah, that's what they like during COVID. Being an allergy sufferer during COVID is not fun.
No,
Because I
no.
can like cough at any minute and I'm like, people are going to look and people are going to be like,
Yeah,
stay away. And when
yeah,
the
totally.
whole sense of like losing your sense of smell and taste, like that would be my first thing. I was like, it may not always be that. Like there are many other things that you can lose it from.
Sure.
And it took me, I want to say I had lost my sense of smell and taste for 2 months in the apartment. And then it took 2 months after moving out to get it back. So I remember
2 months after moving out. Wow.
Yeah, it came back in February of 2016.
Wow. Okay, so to tie this together, so you started knowing your clothes were smelling, right? You actually lost your sense of smell and taste. What was the final straw of like, we're moving out of this place?
So it really, what took us to that apartment in the first place was we had moved to Washington for my husband's work. And so we finally found a place to live, which moved us to that apartment that had the issue. And it wasn't until we found our house that we were able to move out.
Got it.
So unfortunately, in that situation, like we were stuck. And like the people that lived upstairs to us, they kept complaining. She was like, there's a mold issue, and they just kept blowing her off. So we just kind of dropped it because they weren't doing anything. And we weren't in a situation where we could actually just like leave because we didn't have any family where we were at. So
yeah, and there's so many people that go through this that feel trapped, lost, stuck, and so I totally understand what you mean by that. And I'm glad that you guys found a place that you can move into long term and take back control. Okay, so a lot of my clients, they tell me they go from doctor to doctor, sometimes even doctor to doctor and doctor to doctor. Many doctors, in fact. And I'm curious, did you ever see a doctor in this process, or several doctors to look for answers? And how did that make you feel, if you didn't find any answers?
So yes, I'm trying to think right now how many doctors I actually saw. I ended up in urgent care a few times, I think with our normal practitioner a few times. That normal practitioner, I want to say at our time, like during that time, I lost all trust and all faith in any doctor, except one doctor we have here in Texas who's amazing. I just felt this part really makes me emotional because it really makes me upset because it's a psychological thing. Because all these things are happening to your body, but no doctor listens. They're like, oh, you're over exaggerating. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. And they're not really listening to what's happening. Like I had specific symptoms. I had my normal practitioner, and after she said this, I was like, I'm done with you. I'm finding someone else. She told me, she's like, you're the 4Fs. You're 40 fat female. I don't even remember the last one because I was like, when she said that, I was like, I want to punch you in your face. Like, yeah. I get all of those are things that can happen, but I'm like, I'm having specific things outside of those things. You know what I mean? Like, those aren't just the things that are happening to me. So after that, I did finally find someone, and I normally don't like nurse practitioners because in my experience, for me, I just haven't had a good experience with any of them.
Sure.
I did finally find one, and she was the only one that would listen to me. And of course, all the testing that they did were for female issues. And every single one of them like came up negative. And so it just continued on. And it wasn't until I found your Instagram page that I was like, oh my gosh, what, 6 years now? 6 years, I've had multiple different testings, all all female related. And when I saw your like 6 mold symptoms, and I got to the last one, and it says hormone issues and infertility, I was like, okay, so maybe for 6 years, I've been totally testing for the wrong thing and thinking different things when it all still could have been mold related.
Yeah, you know what? You know what's really frustrating is all of the tests that they run. It's not that there's anything wrong with the tests that they run. It's connecting the dots, right? You're not feeling well. There's a general disbelief that you can't be not feeling well because the blood work shows that it's fine. Because this is not coming up that it's registering, right? Actually, what we need to do is we need to change the way we look at this. We need to say, what are the genetics? What are their predispositions? What do the test results say? Okay. And nothing correlates there. Well, then how about the environment, right? The problem is that we're not even looking at the environment as part of the equation, which makes absolutely no sense to me, by the way, but here we are. Now there are good doctors out there. I speak to a lot of them. They're like, Michael, environment's one of the first things we ask about. That's amazing, right? But that's such a small percentage of the amount of doctors out there. And, it's first off, for you to be spoken to that way is ridiculous. And for you to be gaslit and told that, you must be exaggerating or it's all in your head. No, this is real. These are real problems. And for me, the reason why I'm a believer, right, is not only because it makes sense, but because I've talked to way too many people, over 1,000 people that are going through similar challenges in their own way. For me to say this can't be a thing, right? What is science really based upon? It's based upon clinical studies, right? That's really what it's based upon. Medical journals too, right? They're all based upon trials and studies. Well, when I have over 1,000 cases of people coming to me with issues in their environment, and when you walk through their house, you see these issues firsthand, and you correlate it with all the way that they're feeling, right? How could you say that that's not real? We're saying that air pollution outside can cause all types of things, cancers,
right.
Really, really bad health problems, right? I mean, they say it, but not inside. Why is that?
Which is crazy because there's more pollutants inside than there are outside.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the area you live and obviously the circumstance of your house, absolutely. Actually, the EPA did a study. The EPA says your house is most likely 5 times worse inside than it is for the air quality outside. Why is that? Why? Because we don't really focus on building, restoring, or maintaining homes with that in mind. Because we've never thought we needed to. And that's really what it comes down to. It's a lack of education. It's a lack of awareness that allows us to continue to go down this path and make these mistakes. And that's why you're here. That's why I'm here. We're here to tell people this is what's happening. This is real, right? And I am guessing by the end of the year, I will have 100 of these, right?
Yeah.
Of all real people like us showing the world, this is what's happening. And things need to change. So thank you for sharing your story today with me. And I have more questions, of course, but I just wanted to take the time to acknowledge you and let you know that, hey, I believe you. This is real. And, thank you for taking the time to be here today. And I know it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me and letting me share my story.
Yeah, no, it's so necessary, as you could see. So you mentioned some symptoms. So that brings up a good topic. Can you share some of your symptoms?
So one symptom that has stayed with me now since this experience is lung issues. I can if I walk into a building and I start coughing, like I know, like, oh, there's mold here. Like, kind of feel like I'm an easy mold inspector. But anytime I do get sick now, it goes straight to my lungs. So I end up getting
Like
bronchitis a
fluid,
lot.
does it fill up with fluid? Okay, so that makes sense. Bronchitis
I
filling
end
up with
up
fluid and
getting,
pus.
yeah. Which kind of sucks because I never, like, prior to living in that apartment, I never got sick. Like, I would occasionally, get the allergies, but that was about it. I wasn't someone who was sick a lot. Um, as far as symptoms go, and on your sheet where it said, the 6 symptoms of mold.
And there's more, but those are like the 6 top ones that I
Yeah,
hear about a lot.
but after seeing that, so I thought I was having perimenopausal symptoms, and I had had some tests. All of them came back negative. And I was like, you guys are crazy. Like, all of these things are happening to me. But after seeing that specific 6 set, I was like, maybe this whole time it's been a continuation of what took place in the apartment, and it was never treated. It never healed. My husband and I tried getting pregnant. We didn't. I just chalked it up to, okay, God doesn't want us to have more kids. And then 2 years ago, we surprise got pregnant. I mean, I have 4 kids. I know how it happens, but I don't know how that time happened.
Yeah,
But
no,
we
I get it.
lost it. But we ended up having a miscarriage.
Sorry. I'm sorry to hear that. I know that that is difficult, and thank you for sharing that.
So now I wonder if it was all that stuff from before, and now, like, because of that, I actually, finding your podcast makes me want to get to a GYN and see if that could be the issue.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be difficult to find a GYN who is intuitive with mold, and I think that's also going to be an issue because you may, bringing that up to someone who isn't aware of it may be
Yeah.
like, how could that be possible? And that's where we're at right now, by the way, as a society. A lot of these issues, people are saying, how could it be possible? There's a couple of different things that people say to me all the time that sets my teeth on edge, but it's mold is everywhere. Mold has been around forever. This is not real, right? And so when you look at this, mold is everywhere. What does that actually mean? I think people misuse that statement because what they mean to say is that mold and mold spores are part of our ecosystem. There's never a way to fully eradicate mold spores, which is true. But mold is a blanket term used to describe 100,000 species of fungus, right? So if you did a test inside your home and outside your home, it would disprove the whole mold is everywhere because you would have different species with different quantities inside versus outside. So no, mold is not everywhere. It's not the same. It's not evenly distributed. And you actually can control how much of it is in your home by controlling its ability to grow. So this whole mold is everywhere is now nonsense. And I'm glad that I got to debunk that here today with you. The other thing that we hear about is mold has been around forever. And sorry, if I cut you off, go ahead, and would love to hear from you.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was just going to say, and I mean, this is fact from my life. I've only lived in one place that made me cough all the time. We've had a lot of homes. I've never had an issue, but this one place I had an issue. So, like you said, molds is not always everywhere.
Right. It wasn't everywhere because you weren't coughing in your last place. You were coughing in this place. So it wasn't there, it was here, right? Whatever it was, exactly, whatever species that was present that was causing this reaction, right? So that's why I say mold is everywhere is, a line of horse. The other thing is, mold's been around forever, why is it just bothering us now? Well, it's very simple. First off, human beings were never meant to live in little tiny boxes, which we call apartments, houses, etc. And outside, there's an unlimited volume of air. Inside, there's a very limited volume of air, right? And a lot of that air gets recirculated, and it's air that we're constantly breathing in. And if you have mold growing, let's say in your bedroom, and let's say it's Stachybotrys for argument's sake, you're going to be breathing in more Stachybotrys in your bedroom than you would be breathing outside in the open air. Mm-hmm. So that's why we weren't really experiencing these effects as cavemen, right? Because that's what people's argument is. Oh, it's morons for cavemen. Way longer than humans, sure. But we've now created climates where they can grow and thrive in our own homes by building improperly, and we're going in the wrong direction. By restoring homes improperly, because how many landlords have leaks where they just paint over it, they don't repair it properly, they just allow this problem to perpetuate. Band-aid like solutions, etc. Same thing with homes. You call your home insurance company, they send out Joe Schmo and his people to come in and remediate, and they don't do a good job, or they don't really do it properly, because let's face it, it never was about health and wellness. Right? It was always just about, just make it look like it's gone.
Right.
So now we're realizing making it look like it's gone was not thorough enough. And it's actually caused a decline in our health. And these are the conversations that I need to have, because this is what makes people go, wow, you know what? There's something there. We should look into this. All I'm asking is for someone to look into this to disprove what I'm saying. Hasn't happened so far. Why? Because what I'm saying actually makes sense. And when you actually look at this and you talk to real people that have been through this, you can see it. This is a problem and it needs to be fixed.
It for me, it feels, and I'm sure for tons of other people, it feels really frustrating, because my take on it is, here you have these doctors, they go to school, they're learning all the textbook stuff. And if it's not in a textbook, then it just doesn't exist. And in my family, we are not classic textbook anything, like legit anything. Like even my kids with ear infections, my mom with her cancer, my dad with his, like none of it was classic textbook anything. And you're just shoved to the side. And
think about it like this too. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're fine.
I was gonna say, think about it like this too, right? You bring up a really good point with this whole like textbook thing. Yes, there's textbooks that explain if your knee hurts, it could be one of 1,000 different things, and you're supposed to, by process of elimination, figure out what is the cause of your knee hurting by running all these different tests, right? But let's talk about how advancements happen, right? How do we develop cures for things? Well, we have to figure out what the problem is and what the cause of it is, and fixing the cause, right? With mold exposure, I feel like we're just at an infancy stage where we're starting to realize that the environment plays a big role on our health and well-being, and that we need solutions to these problems that can help push the needle forward. Now think about it like this. We started taking off and going into space. Guys like Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos, right? They're developing the technology to go to space. I'm pretty sure these guys are going to proactively get to Mars, maybe even start colonizing Mars. That wasn't possible until someone said that it was possible. It's just that simple, right? They found a way to do it, and they made advancements. Now, if all we ever did was listen to people say, it's impossible, it will never happen, guess what? It would be true. So right now we're saying the environment cannot impact you. Actually, we're not even saying that. We're saying the environment can impact you, but not your house bill. That's out of the question. Not your apartment, your landlord's fine, right? All of these things. Why is that? Why? Because my true feeling on this is, I think that we don't know how to deal with it in an economical way at this point in time. So we're apprehensive as a society to come together and say, this is a problem, without a definitive solution, right? And so I have a definitive solution. I do it every day, but it is costly. And there are some things that need to change to make it less costly. How about preventing it from happening in the first place? And
Yeah.
so, when we look at these things, does that mean that we should not tell people the truth, that this is a problem? Does that mean that we should allow people to get sick and tell them that it's all in their head? No, it doesn't. And so how does anything make change? Well, first you create the awareness around it that change should happen. And so, that's what we're trying to accomplish right here together today, is by creating that awareness. So I want to kind of bring you into this. Do you remember like the worst day that you've ever had, kind of going through this, being exposed to mold?
So I guess what I think could possibly be my worst day. So initially I thought I was just like sick with like a cold or flu. Um, but it's crazy. So in this whole time, I wasn't the only one getting sick. Me and my daughter were like kind of tag teaming the whole time. So I think she had a mold issue as well. Um, and I'm actually now like hoping that doesn't affect her permanently from being in the apartment since she was having issues too. But this one particular day, I couldn't walk. Like I got in the shower thinking, okay, maybe if I take a shower, I'll feel better. Um, I literally had to call my husband because I felt like I was going to fall out of the shower. He had to walk me to the bed. I couldn't even stand up, and he had to put pajamas on me.
Wow.
And I think that was all part of, I want to say that was closer to the time where we were getting ready to move out. But after that, like I was just weak and tired. And crazy thing is, when we moved into our new place and we were moving our bed, we actually had to toss our mattress because there was mold on the underneath part of our mattress. So, I mean, here I was
Yeah, it can
sleeping on it.
transfer. Yeah, and it can transfer, right? It could start off in your apartment, transfer over to your mattress because your mattress is porous, especially in between it, and
Mhm.
we're humans, we sweat in our sleep and things like that, and it can create this environment where mold can start to grow.
But it for me, it was kind of crazy where I found it growing because you would think like under a box spring or like something that's kind of touching like a wall or something, but it was actually the underneath of the mattress, the part that sits on the box spring. There was just like a huge green circle. And which, I mean, that was crazy to me too, because I have dust covers on every mattress. Like, I don't like mattresses getting dirty.
Sure.
So it was crazy for me to find it, like when the guys were moving it in the house. I was like, oh, okay, well, we got to toss that. And I can't believe I was sleeping on that.
Yeah, not your fault. You had mold in the environment, and like I said, it can transfer. Especially when two objects are touching each other, it can actually develop trapped moisture, especially if there was a high humidity day one day, or again, just your sweat absorbing into the mattress. Of course, gravity is going to pull that moisture down. So it makes sense, and of course, it's not your fault, and you would have never thought to check there.
And one other thing too, um, I ended up, because I literally felt like I was going to die for years. And then when the nurse practitioner she gave me like 3 or 4 more medications, and I was going to be like on 10 medications. I was like, let me go see an allergist first. And I started getting allergy shots. Because one thing that was terrible in Washington is that most homes are made without air conditioners. So you live on opening your windows when it's nice outside,
Mm-hmm.
just to be able to cool whatever place that you're living in.
Yeah, and obviously with the amount of rain and humidity that's just naturally in the environment, you're allowing that
Yeah.
moist air to come inside. Yeah, so I can see how that can be a problem. Yeah, and that's a good tip for those listening. You gotta pay attention to the geographical location you're in. In that case, if you have to open the windows all the time, you may want to consider, a different form of AC so that you can get some relief, in air conditioned air without inviting all that excess humidity. Or if you do open the windows during the day, maybe when you turn them off of it, when you shut them eventually, we'll start running your dehumidifiers to keep up with the humidity, so you're not having too high of humidity for more than 24 hours at a time would be key. So thank you for bringing that up. When did you finally start to feel better?
It took me a few months after moving out to finally start feeling better. Like I said, like in February of 2016, I finally started getting my taste and my smell back, but it was really weird when it came back. It like I could smell things, but they didn't smell normal, if that makes sense. And like,
Sure.
I love chocolate. I couldn't eat chocolate at the beginning because it had a very metallic taste to it. And then I just progressively over the year, like I started feeling better. And I think too, along with doing the allergy stuff, that was a little bit helpful. Because then I didn't feel like I was gonna die. Trying to think. I want to say I really started feeling good about 3 years later is when I really started feeling semi like myself.
And other than the allergy shots, was there anything else that you did to kind of help push that process along in terms of healing and detoxifying? Did you change your diet, any supplements you took, or at the time you really didn't connect the dots and you only did the allergy stuff?
I only did the allergy stuff because I guess for me, like I had figured out that it was a mold issue, but I didn't know that there was anything else for me to do. Like it wasn't something that I specifically researched. I think in my mind, I felt like crap so much. Like my goal was what can I do to fix myself? Like,
Right. That makes sense.
So it was very singular for me. It was like, and it was really, what can I do to fix this problem? Because I'm tired of having this problem. Now, I will say, after leaving Washington and coming back to Texas and us getting back with my old doctor, she found that I was extremely deficient in B12 and vitamin D and folic acid. And I kid you not, soon as I started taking, and progesterone, soon as I started taking all of those, I was better day one.
Wow.
Like my hair stopped falling out. I stopped, like, I had like a list of 10 to 15 different symptoms. And that was all the way through. That was even like, with the mold stuff. And that's why I'm wondering now if it was all mold related and not female related, because like my symptoms never changed. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it makes sense.
So
for you, you got out of the mold, you did some testing, figured out some deficiencies that, could have been created or exacerbated by the mold exposure, and fixed those, and you were back to health.
And it's crazy to me that I'm like, if she could find it out with like one small vitamin test, why couldn't the doctors have done that one small vitamin test? You know what I mean? Like you were talking about prevention. And I kind of feel like, and again, this is just from my personal experience and even with my kids, I feel like prevention is like the best medicine. Like it's going to keep you from going to the doctors all the time, spending money, like, but that's where I feel like doctors are like, oh, we kind of want to keep you sick because we want your money. It's like, if we just did the prevention, I mean, how much money and resources and things would we save? And I just want to say that we do have a small handful of doctors that we love and trust. Like, I don't hate everyone.
Sure.
But all of these different experiences, the mold issue, we had issues with my son on a different thing, but just the whole being pushed around has really caused a distrust for me with physicians. And it's really sad because that's the place that you're supposed to go, and they're supposed to listen and they're supposed to help.
Yeah, no, and I understand that, and you're not the only one, and I can understand exactly where you're coming from, because sometimes you go to people and they fail you. You're looking for their expert advice. It happens in every field, in my field too. I get calls, this person told me to do this, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense,
Mm-hmm.
and this is their supposed expert, right? That's telling people things. It happens in any industry, and the medical industry is no stranger to that as well. But there are good actors out there. There's bad apples too, and there's bad actors too, but there are some good people out there. It's hard to find the right one. So I would say, based upon that, I would, if you ever feel weird about what a doctor's telling you, or a diagnosis that's going on that doesn't seem right, get a second opinion.
Yeah.
And hopefully you don't need a 40-second opinion. Definitely try to find someone. Maybe like I tend to look at doctors in the functional medicine space, just because. And I'm not saying that every functional medicine doctor is the best doctor, right? But I tend to look there when I want a second opinion, because I think that a lot of these doctors are designed to try to figure out what is the cause, right? Not, you have a headache, so take Advil, right? What's causing that headache? How do we fix that?
Mm-hmm.
And I like that ideology. Now, just like anything else, you can find people in the functional medicine space that are doing weird things that don't make sense, but at least it gives you like another avenue to check out and see if that's something that works for you. Which brings me to my last question. What would you recommend to others who are going through similar challenges?
I get really in this conversation, just things that you've said, and I don't know the testing, but if you are having definitive symptoms, I would say like have mold testing, or if you can go to I don't know the steps to this, if doctors can test for that. But after going through all my testing and all these negative things, I would say do a mold testing first, regardless of price, because that one test could have changed the course of my life. You know what I mean? Like, I would have rather paid however many thousands of dollars for the one test than to have all the invasive testing that I had done. And I really started to feel like a guinea pig, and that's not a good place to be either. And because in that, you're still feeling like you're crazy and these things are happening to you, and being told not to. Could I say one other thing that and I had never thought about this until you had said it. I think it'd be great for you to do a podcast to kind of make suggestions for people moving to different areas, because we've always lived like in deserty type. I grew up in the desert. I grew up in California in the desert, and then we live in San Antonio. I was not ready for what Washington was. Like, it's a totally different environment, and like I would have never thought like, okay, hey, I really need to think about the air that's coming into our house, maybe a different type of AC unit. But that might be good for you to touch on, because someone coming from a different state that may not know all of the things for that state, that would be great information.
I just wrote down the words interactive map. What would be really cool is if I put together an interactive map and you can click on the different areas or the geographical locations, and we can identify which mold species are prevalent in those areas outside in the outside space, so you can understand the different challenges you're going to have. What is the the rainy seasons look like? What's the humidity look like? And different things that you need to be aware of in that specific geographical location. I think that would be very, very helpful. Well, I really want to thank you for helping me raise the volume on such an important topic. It was very courageous of you to get up here and share your story. I know it's not easy to relive some of these moments, I think at this point we want to say, I'm glad that you're on the other side and you're able to get up here and share your story today. So thank you. And
Thank you for
I
having
hope you
me.
listen to some of the other ones. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm so glad, like, even it's crazy to still be learning from this. And like just in the conversation today, more things that came out. So thank you.